Welcome to your channel, Silent Mind Studio, and thank you for listening to us. Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a world happening thousands of feet above us, a place of incredible complexity and pressure,
Right. It's this constant, intricate ballet of metal birds.
guided by voices and towers, yeah, but it's so much more than just guidance, isn't it?
Or absolutely. We're talking about human beings making these split-second, really high-stakes decisions.
With hundreds of lives just hanging in the balance.
And they're constantly juggling this dizzying array of variables, weather systems moving in, aircraft speed, altitude, trajectory.
And the sometimes unpredictable actions of dozens, maybe even hundreds, of aircraft at the same time. It's an incredibly intense environment.
What's truly fascinating here, I think, is the sheer scale of the cognitive load involved.
Right.
Just think about the dynamic variables. An air traffic controller, an ATC, has to process continuously, in real time,
It's not static information either. It's constantly updating positions, speeds.
changing weather forecasts, impacting routes and runways, ensuring everyone follows thousands of pages of intricate procedural rules,
Wow.
and managing completely unexpected events. It just points to this significant and frankly ever-increasing cognitive burden on the human operator.
Right. And you look at the projections, global air traffic just keeps climbing steadily, more and more aircraft in the skies.
Exactly. So that load just intensifies year after year.
And it starts to look like human cognitive capacity, which is incredible, don't get me wrong.
Phenomenal.
But it might actually become a fundamental limiting factor, keeping everything both safe and efficient at that growing scale.
And that operational pressure, that escalating demand for managing just ever greater complexity in the airspace,
That's the driver.
that is the core fundamental driver for bringing artificial intelligence, AI, into the picture for air traffic management, or ATM.
And AI's strength seems precisely aligned with addressing that exact limitation.
It really is. Its power lies in its ability to analyze just massive volumes of dynamic data instantaneously, and crucially, tirelessly.
Unlike a human who naturally experiences fatigue.
Right. AI can automate so many of the routine data-heavy tasks and handle incredibly complex data processing and correlation across these vast data sets.
So the ultimate goal, reading between the lines of the sources, isn't necessarily about replacing the human controller entirely.
Not necessarily, no. At least not in the foreseeable future. It's more about powerful augmentation. By taking on these data-intensive and routine functions, AI could potentially alleviate a significant chunk of that human cognitive burden.
Which then frees up those highly trained human controllers
Yeah.
to apply their unique expertise to the things AI still really struggles with. Those truly complex, uniquely human judgments.
Navigating ambiguous situations, making critical decisions, especially when things deviate from the script, from standard operating procedures.
Or during those high-stress emergencies.
Exactly. So this deep dive is really all about exploring that intersection, this critical human role, right at the heart of aviation safety, meeting this rapidly advancing field of artificial intelligence.
What actually happens when AI truly enters the tower and the wider airspace management system? So to help you, our listener, get a shortcut to being well-informed on this, we've waded through a stack of material articles, research papers, industry reports.
A lot of reading.
Yeah, exploring the current state of ATC, the potential and the challenges of AI integration, and, what the future might realistically look like.
And our mission with this deep dive is really to unpack the key insights from all these sources. We want to highlight the surprising facts you might not expect.
Definitely.
And just lay out the major considerations about how AI is charting this potentially transformative course for the future of air traffic management.
What are the big promises being made? Safety, efficiency, capacity.
But just as critically, what are the significant potential pitfalls? The challenges we absolutely need to navigate to get there safely.
Okay, so let's jump right into the first segment then. To truly understand where AI fits in, we first need to spend a little more time appreciating the complex, high-pressure world of today's ATC. The human anchor, really, that holds the system together right now.
Yeah, the role of air traffic controllers is absolutely pivotal. They're like the central nervous system for the whole aviation ecosystem.
That's a good way to put it.
Entrusted with ensuring the safe, orderly, and importantly, expeditious movement of aircraft.
And this isn't just happening way up high, right? It includes managing aircraft both in the sky, across these vast regions.
And on the ground at busy airports.
Yeah.
With incredible precision. It's far more comprehensive than just, guiding planes visually or talking to pilots over the radio.
Right. Think about it. Beyond that critical voice communication during flight,
Uh-huh.
they're involved in providing pre-flight briefings to pilots, offering advisory services during the en route phase of flight,
And managing aircraft across these vast and complex terminal areas and airports.
and perhaps the core, the absolutely vital function they perform, minute by minute, second by second,
Is that constant management of aircraft separation.
keeping everything apart.
They are the ones dictating altitude assignments, controlling speed, managing trajectories, all to prevent conflicts and ensure that aircraft maintain a safe minimum distance from one another in 3 dimensions.
Right, and they're issuing all sorts of clearances for visual flight, contact approaches, IFR approaches.
Instrument flight rules, yeah. And they're constantly disseminating critical real-time updates, rapidly changing weather conditions, runway availability at different airports,
Airdromes, yeah.
updated operational procedures. And all of this relies on just unceasing radar or surveillance monitoring and the delivery of clear, unambiguous instructions.
To flight crews who are operating these incredibly complex machines themselves.
Exactly.
And the knowledge required to do this job safely, it's absolutely staggering when you list it out.
It really is. The sources highlight the need for this extensive, deep understanding of aviation laws, intricate rules and regulations governing airspace use.
Detailed operational procedures for literally every conceivable situation.
Meteorology, air navigation principles, standardized communication protocols used globally.
And the performance characteristics of practically every different type of aircraft they might interact with.
From a tiny Cessna to a giant A380.
Exactly.
And the crucial part isn't just the sheer breadth of that knowledge.
No.
It's having that vast repository of information instantly recallable and applicable under conditions of extreme psychological pressure and intense cognitive load.
They just don't have time to look things up in the manual.
No time at all.
It really puts into perspective the mental agility required. I mean, it's not unusual for controllers in busy sectors to be managing dozens, sometimes even hundreds of aircraft simultaneously.
Which forces them into this mode of constant, high-stakes, split-second decision-making.
Where the margin for error is practically non-existent.
And human lives are directly at risk with every single instruction they issue.
Which loops us right back to that concept of cognitive burden we talked about at the start.
Exactly. The sheer volume of dynamic variables they continuously process positions, updating every second, speeds, rapidly changing weather, coordinating runways, ensuring everyone follows complex rules under pressure.
It's immense.
And as global air traffic keeps increasing, this cognitive load is only going to intensify, potentially reaching points where human capacity alone becomes the limiting factor for maintaining both safety and efficiency in the airspace.
Which brings us squarely back to the fundamental driver for AI integration. If human capacity, even with incredible training and skill,
starts to look like it could cap the future growth or efficiency of air travel while still maintaining safety,
then AI offers a potential pathway. Its inherent ability to analyze these massive volumes of flight data from every source instantaneously and tirelessly
without fatigue.
becomes a really powerful potential solution.
Exactly. By automating many of the more routine tasks, handling that overwhelming volume of data processing, identifying patterns human eyes might miss, AI could potentially alleviate a significant portion of that burden.
Allowing human controllers to really focus their unique expertise and judgment
on the more complex, the non-standard, or the emergency situations that really require that nuanced understanding and adaptability.
So it seems like a large chunk of the ATC job is highly structured, right? Governed by very explicit rules, FAA procedures, EASA rules.
Or clearances, separation standards,
Yeah.
Very defined.
That sounds like something AI, which is brilliant at following logic chains perfectly, could be really, really good at.
Absolutely. Rule-based execution, consistent application procedures, these are definite strengths for AI. But, and this is a huge but, the sources also emphasize that the role simultaneously demands this profound capacity for adaptive judgment.
Okay.
Controllers have to maintain constant vigilance for unexpected occurrences. They have to be prepared to manage unpredictable events that just don't fit neatly into any rulebook.
Like sudden severe weather deviating from the forecast, or an unexpected mechanical emergency.
Or runway incursion, yeah. This highlights a really critical dichotomy in the role. The interplay between that rule-based execution where AI can excel
And the adaptive human judgment needed for truly novel or unforeseen circumstances.
and that dichotomy appears to be a central, formidable challenge for successfully integrating AI into the core control functions of ATC.
It strongly suggests, then, that while AI might initially handle those more predictable procedural aspects,
Human expertise remains absolutely indispensable for navigating the truly unpredictable, complex parts of the job, the parts that require real-world experience and that deep adaptability.
when we think specifically about those unique human capabilities, what do ATCs bring that AI currently just can't replicate?
Well, there's a whole suite of skills. Sophisticated spatial awareness, for instance, just visualizing that complex 3D airspace with dozens of moving objects simultaneously, that's incredibly hard for AI.
And nuanced, context-sensitive communication abilities, understanding tone, subtext.
Incredibly complex for AI. Humans have exceptional problem-solving skills, specifically honed under intense, time-sensitive pressure.
And that remarkable adaptability to unforeseen, rapidly evolving circumstances, that feels uniquely human.
It really is an invaluable human trait. Sources like the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics or the U.K.'s National Career Service consistently point to attributes like clear, concise communication,
Rapid decision-making.
meticulous attention to detail, strong mathematical aptitude for quick calculations, superior organization,
Problem-solving under pressure.
intense concentration, sound judgment, and just the ability to perform consistently under extreme stress.
These aren't just skills you learn in a classroom. They're traits honed through years of experience and really rigorous training.
Yet, despite these incredible capabilities, human operators also have inherent limitations. We have to acknowledge that.
Sure.
Fatigue is a very real physiological factor, especially during long shifts or in high-volume airspace. Cognitive biases can subtly creep into decision-making processes.
And there are just fundamental physiological constraints on human attention span and decision-making capacity, right? Especially in really high traffic density or during prolonged complex scenarios.
Definitely. A classic example of a limitation kind of built into the current system is the see and avoid principle used under visual flight rules.
Right, VFR.
It fundamentally relies on human visual perception,
Yeah.
which we know has limitations.
Think about high traffic density, just hard to spot everything. Or poor visibility due to weather.
Or simply when a pilot is experiencing high workload in the cockpit and just can't dedicate full attention to scanning the sky. That's a human visual limitation built right into a fundamental safety principle.
And controllers, being human, also face incredibly difficult ethical dilemmas in their job.
Oh, absolutely. Like balancing that constant operational pressure for efficiency, get planes moving quickly,
Yeah.
against the unwavering need to maintain minimum safety margins.
Or even just managing their own personal fatigue and stress in a job where a single error can have catastrophic, dire consequences.
And these inherent human factors aren't just individual issues, are they? They could be significantly exacerbated by the very systems and infrastructure they are required to use and the operational environment they work within.
Yeah, the sources definitely point to significant challenges within existing systems, like the FAA's documented struggles with aging ATC systems and delays in the next generation air transportation system, the next gen modernization program.
Things like complex software development needing lengthy testing cycles, unanticipated technical or logistical requirements popping up.
And disruptive events like the COVID pandemic or government shutdowns, they can really delay crucial system testing and getting controllers trained on new technology.
And a significant portion of the current ATC infrastructure in various parts of the world is described as, well, frankly, antiquated.
Decades old.
Yeah, we're talking about core technology that's decades old, where replacement parts are scarce or even totally non-existent. And there's a dwindling pool of technical expertise, even familiar with how these older systems work, let alone how to fix them. This reliance on aging, potentially unsustainable systems, introduces inherent risks to maintaining the safe, orderly, and expeditious flow of air traffic into the future.
And here's where there's that fascinating paradox you mentioned, almost an ironic twist.
Yeah.
The documented condition of this aging infrastructure, the increasing risks of component failure, the difficulty finding spares, the lack of modern functionality, undoubtedly an operational vulnerability right now.
Sure.
But it also acts as this powerful potential catalyst for accelerated AI adoption in the long term.
Precisely. Well, the immediate challenge is just keeping the current system running reliably day to day.
The long-term prospect of continually patching, maintaining, supporting these obsolete legacy systems.
Many designed in an era fundamentally ill-suited for future demands like managing drones, UTM, UAM.
Right, that high density and low altitude airspace.
It may simply be less viable and potentially more expensive than a strategic modernization effort. Investing in new AI-readied digital infrastructure could be a significantly more forward-looking approach over time.
So, in a way, the decay of the current system could actually compel a more radical technological leap towards building AI-native solutions from the ground up.
Instead of just trying to incrementally upgrade or patch systems that are fundamentally misaligned with the anticipated complexities of future airspace, especially with drones and air taxis coming.
It's a fascinating push factor for change.
And this links back very strongly to the human factors we discussed. The challenges human ATCs face: fatigue, high cognitive workload. They aren't purely individual limitations.
No, they're often amplified and made more difficult by the limitations, the design, the condition of the aging systems they have to operate.
Which highlights this inextricable link between human factors, system design, and technological infrastructure.
The FAA itself has acknowledged, according to the sources, that critical human factors research has sometimes been insufficiently visible or not integrated early or comprehensively enough to properly inform guidance for technology development within programs like NextGen.
Which tells us that successful AI integration into APC isn't just about building ever more sophisticated AI algorithms or faster processors.
No.
It absolutely necessitates a deep, proactive integration of human factors research right from the very outset of system design.
This is vital to ensure that AI systems are designed to actually mitigate existing human limitations and challenges,
without inadvertently introducing entirely new failure modes, perhaps stemming from suboptimal human-AI interaction, confusing interfaces.
or just a misunderstanding of how controllers will truly rely on and interact with these new automated systems in the real world.
Before we move on, folks, just a quick reminder. If you are finding this deep dive interesting and you're interested in content like this, please do subscribe to the channel and follow us here at Silent Mind Studio.
Yeah, we try to tackle a topic that's intrigued us every day. And if you are curious about anything we're discussing or have questions, definitely ask in the comments section below. We love getting into those discussions. It's always really exciting.
Okay, so we've painted a picture of this complex, high-pressure world of human ATC. We've talked about the inherent capabilities and limitations of controllers and the systemic factors, including that aging infrastructure, driving the need for technological change.
So now let's look at where AI is already starting to step in. What are its capabilities and promises in the realm of air traffic management?
Well, AI is definitely progressively establishing a foothold in various aspects of ATM globally. Organizations like Eurocontrol, for instance.
In Europe, yeah.
They're actively employing AI today to enhance flight planning accuracy, improve the precision of traffic prediction models,
Knowing where planes will be.
optimize flight trajectories for efficiency, and streamline operations on the ground at busy airports. They're explicitly leveraging AI to help reduce aviation's environmental impact through more efficient routing and to assist the ATM network in dynamically scaling capacity to handle fluctuating demand.
And in the U.S., there's that big collaboration between NASA and the FAA.
Right. They're actively exploring how AI and machine learning, ML, can be used for things like developing more precise and accurate trajectory prediction models,
Knowing exactly where an aircraft will be and when.
intelligent runway configuration management based on real-time traffic and weather.
And even advanced speech-to-text transcription for pilot controller communications.
That last one seems particularly crucial, not just for real-time understanding, but for accurate logging and then subsequent operational analysis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the CSAR-3 joint undertaking in Europe, that's a major strategic driver for AI adoption, working towards their vision of a digital European sky.
And their initiative is really comprehensive, isn't it? Managing not just conventional aircraft.
But also the rapidly emerging vehicles,
Yeah.
like drones and air taxis, taking a truly comprehensive approach to future airspace management, where AI is expected to play a really central role.
And global bodies like ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, They're recognizing and endorsing AI's potential too.
Yeah, particularly highlighting its application in flight data monitoring, or FDM.
Okay.
AI-driven FDM allows for a much more proactive approach to safety risk management. By automatically analyzing these vast data sets of operational flight data, AI can identify subtle trends and patterns.
That might indicate potential safety issues or precursor events before they escalate into actual incidents.
Exactly. Proactive safety.
What seems like a truly fundamental insight here is recognizing the absolutely crucial role that existing modernization programs are playing, like NextGen in the USA and CSAR in Europe.
Even though many of these started before the most recent AI surge,
Right.
they are absolutely indispensable for creating the necessary digital infrastructure that AI systems require to function effectively.
So things like shifting to digital pilot controller communications, datacom.
Relying on precise satellite-based navigation instead of ground systems like GPS and Galileo.
And establishing robust system-wide information management, SWIM, networks for seamless and secure data exchange across all stakeholders.
These are all foundational, absolutely foundational.
Yeah, the importance of that underlying digital infrastructure. It's even underscored by commercial partnerships mentioned in the sources. Companies like Archer Aviation.
Developing those electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, eVTOLs.
They're partnering with Palantir Technologies to develop next-gen AI software specifically for ATM. And their collaboration explicitly relies on having robust data feeds and high-speed communication networks enabled by programs like NextGen.
Exactly. And a recent abstract we reviewed highlighted the sheer breadth of AI applications being actively looked at or already piloted.
Like what?
AI-powered air traffic flow management across large regions, predictive trajectory optimization down to the second, AI-enhanced real-time weather forecasting impacting operations.
Automation of ground operations logistics using AI for sustainability initiatives.
Enhancing passenger experience through better predictions. Improving cybersecurity posture with AI.
Using AI to defend against attacks.
Yeah, and using AI for network resilience. It's a huge spectrum.
So what you're saying is NextGen and CSAR aren't just modernizing the system, they are effectively digitizing it.
Enhancing surveillance capabilities, creating platforms for comprehensive information sharing via SWIM.
They are creating the rich, interconnected data environments that AI systems absolutely require to function.
Precisely. In this context, AI isn't just some optional add-on. It looks more like a logical, perhaps even inevitable evolutionary step enabled by this fundamental digital transformation of the airspace infrastructure.
And if we connect this back to the initial problem, that cognitive burden, modern aviation generates absolutely vast quantities of data.
Gigabytes upon gigabytes, flight parameters, weather info, surveillance data streams, communication logs, system performance data.
And this volume often far exceeds human capacity to process, correlate, and interpret effectively in real time across a complex operational picture.
This is that data-rich, insight-poor paradigm that AI is uniquely positioned to address.
And that AI capability, its inherent ability to rapidly process, analyze, and identify complex patterns within these absolutely massive data sets.
That's a primary, maybe the primary technological driver for its adoption in ATM.
It allows for this fundamental shift from just accumulating raw data
to the real-time generation
Yeah.
of actionable intelligence and deeper insights.
Yeah.
And this ability profoundly enhances operational decision-making capabilities, improves predictive capabilities for everything from traffic flow to potential equipment failures.
And ultimately, the fundamental promise is that it contributes to a significantly safer and more efficient global air traffic system by providing controllers and managers with a level of insight and foresight that was previously just impossible.
When we talk about AI here,
Yep.
what specific types of AI technologies are actually being used or explored? It's not just one monolithic thing called AI, right?
Right. It's a whole toolkit.
Definitely. It's a diverse array of technologies tailored to different problems within ATM. Machine learning, ML, is probably the cornerstone. It's used for pattern detection in vast historical data, identifying safety trends, predicting traffic surges. It's fundamental for creating predictive models for everything from potential conflicts to system load.
And reinforcement learning, RL, that sounds different.
It is. RL is also being actively explored. This is where an AI system learns optimal strategies through trial and error, but within complex simulations.
Like learning by doing, but in a safe environment.
Exactly. Think automating complex sequencing decisions or providing intelligent assistance that can dynamically adapt its recommendations based on real-time outcomes in the simulation.
You mentioned graph neural networks, GNNs, earlier. Those sound pretty specialized. What makes them relevant for air traffic control?
GNNs are particularly well suited because they can effectively model the complex, interconnected nature of airspace as a dynamic network graph.
So nodes are airports or aircraft, edges are routes or interactions.
Something like that, yeah. This allows for sophisticated network-wide analysis, things like analyzing real-time traffic density, predicting congestion hotspots based on aircraft clustering and flow,
And optimizing flight trajectories by considering their network-wide effects, not just looking at one plane in isolation.
precisely.
And what about the large language models, LLMs, like ChatGPT, the ones we hear so much about? Are those relevant in a system based on precise data and rules?
Yes, LLMs are finding significant applications, though perhaps different ones than you might expect. For example, OpenAI's Whisper model.
For transcription.
Exactly. It's being explored or used for highly accurate speech-to-text transcription of pilot controller communications. This is essential not only for logging and compliance, but also for enabling further AI analysis and understanding of those critical exchanges.
And beyond just transcription.
More advanced LLMs like OpenAI's O3 or Google's Gemini 2.0 are envisioned for tasks like providing AI-assisted communication support, potentially reducing ambiguities or misunderstandings.
Okay.
And crucially, for integrating and interpreting multimodal data, combining text, voice transcripts, radar imagery, weather charts, system alerts, fusing all that together to provide a controller with a more holistic and understandable operational picture.
That's fascinating, combining understanding spoken or written language with visual and positional data. It really moves beyond just transcription.
Exactly. And deep learning, which is a subset of ML using multi-layered neural networks, is also instrumental here. It's powerful for recognizing highly complex patterns that might be too subtle for traditional analysis.
Suitable for things like analyzing image feeds from tower cameras.
Or deriving intricate predictions from subtle, correlated data cues that a human might miss. Academic research is also contributing significantly, exploring ML specifically for fuel optimization through highly precise route planning.
Advanced predictive weather analytics impacting routes and capacities.
And AI-driven aerodrome traffic management to optimize ground movements.
So with many of these technologies, especially machine learning and reinforcement learning, we're seeing a definite move towards AI systems that aren't just following a fixed, pre-programmed set of rules. They're learning and adapting based on data or experience.
Yes, and this increasing integration of adaptive, non-deterministic AI systems signifies a really fundamental departure from the predominantly rule-based, deterministic nature of current ATC systems.
Okay, break that down. Deterministic AI.
Is where the outcome of an input is always predictable based on predefined rules. It's considered more straightforward to validate and certify for safety.
Makes sense. But adaptive AI.
Learns and adapts its behavior based on new data or interactions, which introduces an inherent element of unpredictability. The outcomes aren't always fixed or foreseen. New behaviors can actually emerge from the learning process itself.
And that inherent unpredictability seems like it would introduce a whole new layer of complexity when you're talking about certifying systems for aviation safety. Like, how do you prove it's safe if its behavior can change?
It certainly does. It necessitates developing entirely novel methods for validation, verification, and building trust. Because traditional V&V approaches used for deterministic software simply aren't sufficient for systems whose behavior can evolve. This has profound implications for how safety assurance is approached and regulated in ATC.
And speaking of challenges related to the nature of AI, there's this concept of the black box problem with some advanced AI models.
That's a significant technical hurdle and a major trust challenge that the sources repeatedly highlight. Many advanced AI models, particularly complex deep learning systems, have these opaque internal decision-making processes.
So it's incredibly difficult for human operators, system engineers, or even accident investigators to truly understand why the AI made a specific decision or recommendation in a given situation.
Exactly. And in a safety-critical field like air traffic control, where traceability, understandability of every action, and rigorous post-incident analysis are absolutely paramount.
You need to know why something happened.
That lack of transparency is a critical barrier. The emerging field of explainable AI, XAI, is specifically developing techniques to try and provide some insight into AI reasoning processes, often by highlighting the data or features that most influence a decision.
So successful and widespread AI deployment in ATC is heavily contingent on significant advancements in XAI.
It seems so. Without robust explainability, Establishing the necessary trust among human controllers using the system, regulators certifying it, the public flying under it will be exceedingly difficult. And the path to certification for any safety-critical function remains formidable without it.
Okay, so despite these really significant technical and trust challenges, the potential benefits and promises of AI and ATC, if they can be realized, sound truly transformative.
The anticipated gains in safety, efficiency, and capacity are indeed significant enough to drive this global effort. For safety, AI offers the promise of predictive collision prevention. By constantly analyzing trajectories and identifying potential conflicts far earlier than current systems, enabling proactive interventions. It also promises real-time anomaly detection by analyzing vast data streams from diverse sources simultaneously, identifying subtle hazards early.
And for efficiency, what does AI bring to the table there?
Well, AI can optimize air traffic flow not just for individual aircraft, but systemically across large regions or entire networks, significantly reducing delays and congestion.
Okay.
It can automate many of the routine, repetitive tasks that consume human controller time, freeing up their expertise for higher-level cognitive work.
And crucially, AI systems can operate 24/7 without experiencing fatigue, maintaining peak performance.
Right. They can process data instantaneously and potentially react faster than humans with logic-based protocols in certain defined emergencies, although human judgment is still needed for complex, unforeseen situations.
What about capacity? Can AI actually fit more planes into the same airspace safely? That seems like a big claim.
It is a key promise and a major driver. By enabling more precise tracking, more accurate trajectory prediction, and optimizing separation standards through predictive analysis and dynamic routing,
AI can potentially allow a greater number of aircraft to operate safely and efficiently within the same volume of airspace than is possible with current constraints.
so yes, potentially increasing capacity.
And beyond the core operational benefits, safety, efficiency, capacity, there are other downstream advantages too, right?
Absolutely. More efficient routes and reduced holding patterns translate directly into substantial fuel savings for airlines.
Wait, it means?
Reduced emissions, contributing to environmental sustainability goals for the industry.
Good. And for passengers.
By improving scheduling accuracy, minimizing delays, and managing disruptions better, AI is expected to significantly enhance the overall passenger experience. Fewer delays, hopefully.
And the idea isn't necessarily AI instead of humans controlling aircraft, but humans working with powerful AI systems. That's the vision.
Yes, the prevailing vision across the sources is the human-AI hybrid, or HAH, paradigm.
HAH.
Okay, this is seen as a synergistic combination, blending the unique strengths of human judgment, intuition, adaptability.
With the power of AI's computation, speed, and pattern recognition.
Exactly. This combination is projected to further enhance safety by catching errors neither could detect alone, improve operational efficiency beyond current limits.
And ultimately reduce the likelihood of catastrophic failures by building in layers of intelligent oversight and support.
Historically, in aviation, increasing efficiency like trying to fly aircraft closer together or use airspace more intensively has often been perceived as potentially encroaching on safety margins.
Yeah, it felt like a trade-off. Faster or safer.
This is a profound point, and AI has the potential to fundamentally reconfigure that dynamic trade-off. By enabling novel operational concepts like dynamic airspace sectorization that can change in real time based on demand.
Or predictive conflict resolution that anticipates and mitigates potential issues hours or even minutes before they become a threat.
AI can facilitate simultaneous enhancements in both efficiency and safety.
So technologies like predictive trajectory optimization, AI-powered decision support systems, AI managing complex flows, they don't just make things faster.
No, they offer a level of precision and proactive risk management that could potentially surpass current human capabilities alone, especially under high traffic or complexity.
So this suggests a potential new operational frontier, the ability to use the existing airspace infrastructure more intensively,
Increasing capacity and efficiency.
while concurrently maintaining or even elevating safety levels through the superior analytical and predictive power that AI brings.
Exactly. The objectives of efficiency and safety need not be mutually exclusive in an AI-augmented system.
That sounds like a real paradigm shift in aviation safety management itself, because traditional safety management has often been reactive, right?
Very much so. Meticulously investigating incidents and accidents after they happen to learn from past failures and implement new rules.
But AI's predictive capabilities, forecasting operational risks, anticipating potential conflicts, identifying subtle deviations,
Offer a fundamental shift towards a more proactive safety culture within ATM. This aligns perfectly with modern safety philosophies like ICAO's Safety Management System framework, which emphasizes proactive hazard identification and risk management.
So by identifying and addressing potential hazards before they manifest as incidents or accidents?
AI has the transformative potential to alter the safety paradigm, moving from predominantly reactive learning to increasingly predictive and preventative action.
Just a quick reminder for everyone listening, if you're finding this deep dive valuable, please hit that subscribe button and follow Silent Mind Studio.
We explore topics like this every day, and engaging with your comments and questions really helps us shape future discussions. So please, do join the conversation below.
Okay, we've heard about the immense potential and the significant promises of AI in air traffic control, enhancing safety, efficiency, capacity. Big stuff.
Huge potential, yeah.
But as with any powerful technology, especially in a safety-critical domain like this, there's significant turbulence to navigate. Critical challenges that absolutely need to be addressed. Let's dive into those now.
A really significant impediment to full-scale safety-critical AI deployment in ATC is what the sources often refer to as the AI cognition gap.
Okay, the cognition gap, what's that?
It's AI's current fundamental limitation in performing true human-like situational reasoning, particularly when faced with the highly unpredictable element of human behavior, pilots, ground crew, even unexpected passenger actions.
Or entirely novel edge case scenarios that were simply not represented or not represented sufficiently in its training data.
Right. So while AI is incredibly good at pattern recognition and executing logic based on data it is seeing,
it struggles significantly with the kind of intuitive understanding and adaptation that humans do almost automatically. Responding to truly unforeseen events or anomalies based on years of accumulated, often implicit real-world experience.
Exactly. AI can have significant limitations in truly comprehending the full, nuanced context of a situation beyond its programmed parameters. It often lacks that human flexibility to adapt or even judiciously bend, establish rules or procedures when faced with the unique, dynamic circumstance that the rulebook just didn't anticipate.
That traditional see and avoid principle we mentioned, despite its known human limitations.
It really illustrates the profound complexity of real-world visual perception, spatial reasoning, and decision-making that an AI system would need to replicate or even surpass to be considered safe for autonomous control functions.
And even when AI is just intended as an assistant, right, helping controllers maintain situational awareness or providing recommendations.
Its effectiveness really hinges on transparency and trust. If a controller doesn't understand or trust why the AI is suggesting a potentially counterintuitive course of action,
that collaborative benefit is completely undermined. Or worse, the controller might just ignore a correct recommendation because they don't trust it.
And a core technical issue underlying this is the brittleness of many contemporary AI systems, particularly those heavily based on machine learning.
Brittleness, meaning they break easily.
Kind of. Their performance can degrade significantly, unpredictably, or even catastrophically when faced with data that is out of distribution.
Scenarios that are fundamentally different from the dataset they were trained on.
Exactly. And aviation, by its nature, is a domain characterized by extremely rare but potentially catastrophic events, the black swan scenarios.
Right, the things you just don't expect.
Precisely. This susceptibility of AI to fail or produce unreliable, potentially dangerous outputs in genuinely novel situations is a profound safety concern. An AI trained on vast amounts of normal and even abnormal traffic data could still falter catastrophically when a truly unprecedented situation arises.
Like a novel aircraft failure type never seen before.
Or extreme unforecast weather in a specific micro-location, or a complex and evolving security threat. This is where human adaptability, creative problem-solving, and the ability to function without a pre-programmed playbook are currently just indispensable.
And then there's that human intuition gap you touched on earlier, that gut feeling, right? That rapid, almost subconscious assessment that experienced controllers develop over years and years on the job.
That intuitive element is exceptionally difficult, perhaps currently impossible, to codify or replicate accurately in an AI system.
Why is it so important?
It allows human controllers for rapid assessment and decision-making in ambiguous situations, often with incomplete, conflicting, or really subtle data cues that a rule-based or data-driven AI might not even recognize or know how to weigh.
AI decisions, by contrast, are typically data-driven, follow explicit logical paths.
But they lack this nuanced, experience-based feel for a developing situation.
Which raises a critical human factors question for human-AI interaction, doesn't it? In a high-pressure moment, when should a human controller trust their own experience-based intuition over an AI's statistically derived recommendation?
Especially if the AI's suggestion seems counter to the human's gut feeling, even if the AI seems more correct based purely on the data it has access to.
That's a tough one.
This challenge of modeling, understanding, and effectively integrating human intuition into a human-AI teaming paradigm remains a key area of research and system design.
Okay, so beyond the technical and operational stuff, there are significant ethical quandaries that arise when we consider putting AI in these safety-critical life-or-death decision loops.
Oh, absolutely. Paramount among these is the challenge of programming moral judgment into a machine, especially for scenarios akin to the philosophical trolley problem.
Where any potential decision could lead to negative outcomes, trading one type of harm or risk for another.
Precisely. AI systems inherently lack human empathy, consciousness, and the nuanced understanding of human moral reasoning needed to navigate such crises in a way we would consider ethically sound or acceptable.
And ensuring fairness, actively avoiding bias in AI decisions.
Yeah.
That's critical, but challenging.
Because AI learns from historical data, which can and often does contain embedded biases from past human decisions or systemic inequalities.
Right. So translating the foundational ethical principles that rigorously guide human ATCs, prioritizing safety above all, maintaining integrity, ensuring impartiality.
Into AI logic is incredibly difficult, particularly when faced with complex moral dilemmas involving unavoidable harm or competing values. Regulatory frameworks emerging globally, like the EU AI Act, recognize this and are emphasizing the need for significant human agency and oversight in safety-critical AI systems.
This value alignment problem seems particularly acute in an international domain like ATC. Whose ethical framework does the AI embody during a crisis where difficult choices must be made?
It's not just a technical problem. It's a profound societal and philosophical question with real-world implications. Different cultures, different regulatory bodies, different political systems might legitimately prioritize different outcomes in an emergency.
Like minimizing immediate human casualties in the air versus preventing damage to densely populated areas on the ground.
For instance, achieving a truly global consensus on programmed values or ethical protocols for an international AI system is extraordinarily challenging and could potentially lead to different AI systems operating with subtly different ethics depending on the jurisdiction they are deployed in or the specific policy they are programmed under.
And some sources raise the concern that assigning these morally fraught, difficult decision-making processes to AI could risk what's been termed ethical outsourcing.
Exactly. This could potentially lead to human operators becoming psychologically detached from the ethical gravity of decisions made by the AI under their supervision.
Or even organizations subtly sidestepping or obscuring accountability if an AI's difficult choice leads to adverse outcomes.
If an AI is programmed to choose between two undesirable outcomes, the clear locus of moral responsibility becomes significantly blurred. There are valid concerns about creating moral crumple zones.
Moral crumple zones.
Where human operators might be unfairly blamed or held accountable for failures or unintended consequences stemming from complex AI system decisions that they didn't fully design, understand, or control. Over-reliance on AI for decisions involving difficult ethical trade-offs could potentially erode the fundamental human sense of responsibility and accountability that is a cornerstone of the current aviation safety culture.
So for any AI system to be successfully accepted and integrated into a safety-critical domain like ATC, building bedrock trust among all stakeholders is absolutely fundamental. But building that trust is a significant challenge in itself.
It requires demonstrably trustworthy AI systems.
Yeah.
Which necessitates transparency in how they make decisions.
And clear, unambiguous lines of accountability when incidents or errors occur.
And the inherent black box nature of many advanced AI models is a substantial barrier to this. Regulatory bodies like EASA in their AI roadmap prominently feature transparency, explainability, XAI, and clear accountability as foundational principles that must be established for safety and public confidence.
Because if human controllers operating the system don't fully understand or trust the AI's reasoning or reliability,
they are unlikely to use the systems effectively, potentially negating the benefits or, worse, introducing new operational risks through misuse or distrust.
And accountability is a particularly complex legal and operational challenge, isn't it? If an AI system contributes to an incident, where does responsibility actually lie?
Is it the AI developer, the organization that integrated the AI, the human operator supervising the AI at the time? or somehow the AI itself?
That's a daunting legal and ethical puzzle that existing legal frameworks are still grappling with. Determining negligence, breach of contract, or product liability when autonomous systems err is incredibly complex.
And a critical aspect of trust isn't just having trust, but having calibrated trust.
Calibrated trust, meaning
Having an accurate, realistic understanding of the AI's true capabilities and its limitations. Overtrust, often called automation bias,
can lead to complacency. Controllers might uncritically accept AI outputs or recommendations even when they are wrong, failing to intervene when necessary.
Exactly. Conversely, undertrust means the AI is ignored or underutilized, preventing the realization of its potential benefits. Achieving this appropriate trust calibration is a dynamic human factors challenge.
It requires careful system design, robust and realistic training.
And the AI itself exhibiting transparent and predictable behavior within its operational envelope. Effective AI integration depends on building genuinely trustworthy AI and designing the interfaces and training to help humans build an accurate mental model of how the AI operates and when it might fail.
This discussion about trust and accountability ties directly into the regulatory landscape, doesn't it?
It does. The existing legal and regulatory frameworks for accountability and liability for AI failures are significantly underdeveloped compared to the rapid pace of AI technology advancement.
That's a major challenge, creating uncertainty for everyone involved.
Current legal systems were simply not designed to handle the nuances of liability when autonomous adaptive systems err or contribute to accidents in complex ways.
And this regulatory gap creates significant uncertainty and hesitation among stakeholders, developers, airlines, air navigation service providers.
About deploying highly autonomous AI in high-risk domains like ATC, undefined and potentially unmanageable liabilities act as a significant brake on innovation and adoption. Addressing this regulatory lag is absolutely essential for paving the way for advanced AI applications in this space.
And as ATC systems become increasingly AI-driven and interconnected, the cybersecurity risks increase significantly too.
Oh, definitely. The increasing reliance on AI-driven ATC systems means they are highly interconnected, deeply dependent on real-time data flows, and therefore introduce a whole new spectrum of cybersecurity vulnerabilities.
The threat landscape expands beyond conventional threats like hacking, data breaches, denial of service attacks,
to include aviation-specific threats like GPS spoofing or jamming, and insider threats exploiting system access.
But the AI systems themselves can be direct targets for novel types of attacks, right? That's new.
Absolutely. Techniques like data poisoning.
Where you corrupt the training data.
Exactly. Malicious or subtly altered data is introduced into the AI's training dataset to corrupt its future behavior. Or adversarial attacks,
where attackers craft subtle inputs specifically designed to fool deployed models into making incorrect or unsafe decisions.
These are novel challenges that traditional cybersecurity measures might not address. Conversely, AI itself can be weaponized by attackers to automate and scale conventional cyber attacks or identify system vulnerabilities more rapidly.
So ensuring the resilience and security of AI-powered ATC networks against this evolving array of sophisticated threats is paramount.
It has to be. While AI can also enhance defenses, for example, through advanced anomaly detection,
the expansion of the digital attack surface into the AI domain remains a major concern.
What's fascinating here is the double-edged sword aspect. AI can enhance defense capabilities, like advanced anomaly detection.
Right.
But it also introduces new, complex attack vectors, like adversarial machine learning and data poisoning, that traditional network security measures may not be equipped to handle effectively.
So this requires an evolution in cybersecurity strategies specific to AI.
Focusing not just on securing the network infrastructure, but on securing the AI systems themselves from these AI-centric attack methodologies. Verifying data integrity, ensuring the models are robust against adversarial manipulation. International standards are emerging, like ISO/IEC 42001 for AI management.
Okay.
And ICAO has a comprehensive aviation cybersecurity strategy, but it's a constant race against evolving threats.
And the very architectural principles that enable AI benefits in ATM, that extensive data sharing via SWIM, the deep interconnectedness between systems,
also amplify systemic risk. That's a critical point about system architecture.
Seamless data integration is crucial for AI performance and creating a unified operational picture.
But this means a successful attack on just one component, one data stream, or one interconnected system could potentially cause far-reaching, cascading failures across the entire network.
Heightened interconnectedness, while enabling powerful AI increases the potential for widespread disruption from a single point of compromise.
So building robust resilience and comprehensive security for the entire ecosystem, not just isolated components, must be a top priority in the design and deployment of AI-powered ATC systems.
And beyond known failure modes or cybersecurity threats, deploying highly complex advanced AI in safety-critical systems could introduce unforeseen, truly novel risks and systemic vulnerabilities, things that are far more challenging to anticipate and mitigate than conventional engineering faults.
This is where concerns about things like rogue AIs come into play.
Rogue AIs? Seriously?
Well, scenarios where an AI's behavior diverges from its intended design in unexpected or even harmful ways. This could be due to subtle bugs, unforeseen interactions, or emergent properties as systems scale and learn.
Concerns include an AI optimizing for a flawed or incomplete objective.
Or goal drift, where its priorities subtly shift over time, or even behaviors that look like power-seeking, trying to maintain operational continuity at any cost or deception, maybe masking its own limitations or errors.
And the data itself is a continued source of vulnerability beyond just poisoning, right?
Absolutely. If the initial training data is biased, incomplete, unrepresentative of certain conditions like rare emergencies, or contains errors,
the AI can perform poorly, make erroneous or unsafe judgments, or behave unfairly towards certain types of traffic. This amplifies the risk of garbage in, catastrophe out.
in a system where errors have dire consequences. Furthermore, the sheer complexity of these integrated human AI systems can create situations where human operators become those moral crumple zones we talked about.
Unfairly blamed for failures stemming from opaque AI decision-making they didn't fully understand or control.
And broader systemic risks, like an AI race are mentioned. Competitive pressure between nations or companies to deploy AI quickly could potentially lead to rushed development, insufficient testing, and sacrificing rigorous safety validation in the pursuit of being first.
Plus, the increasing complexity and integration of AI systems can create a complexity ratchet effect.
Yeah. As AI interweaves with existing infrastructure and increasingly interacts with other AI systems, understanding the emergent collective behaviors and identifying all potential failure modes becomes exponentially more difficult.
Each new function or interconnection introduces novel, unpredictable interactions and vulnerabilities.
Which makes safety assurance a constantly moving target, especially challenging traditional V&D methods for adaptive learning AI. And managing the integration of UAM and drones alongside traditional traffic adds yet another significant layer of complexity to all this.
Which brings us back to that fundamental, persistent research challenge you mentioned earlier, the alignment problem.
Precisely. This is the core difficulty in ensuring that an advanced AI's operational goals, its internal motivations, its moment-to-moment decisions remain perfectly aligned with overarching human safety objectives.
Especially as the AI learns and evolves over time.
Exactly. Even subtle misalignments could be catastrophic, like an AI strictly optimizing for throughput or delay minimization that inadvertently compromises crucial safety margins, or makes assumptions humans wouldn't.
This underscores the critical need for continued fundamental research into AI alignment, control, and value embedding, ensuring that AI systems and safety-critical infrastructure are designed to consistently act according to the absolute highest safety priorities, even in unforeseen circumstances.
It seems like the challenges are truly as significant as the promises here.
Definitely. Let's take a moment now to look at the comparative capabilities of human ATC and AI side by side. The sources provide a really helpful breakdown, almost like a table, comparing their strengths and weaknesses across key operational functions.
This comparison is absolutely essential, because it highlights why a human-AI hybrid approach, rather than pure automation, is likely the necessary path forward, at least for the foreseeable future.
Okay, let's go through some of these core functions. How about complex decision-making under uncertainty?
Right. Human ATCs bring decades of experience-based judgment, that intuition honed over thousands of hours, remarkable adaptability to novelty. But they can be affected by fatigue, stress, cognitive biases.
And current AI
Excels at rapid data-driven analysis, applying logic consistently across vast data sets, but struggles with true novelty. Its decisions can be black box and hard to interpret, and is fundamentally limited by the quality and completeness of its training data.
Okay. Adaptability to novel or unforeseen events like a sudden volcanic ash cloud or an unprecedented multi-aircraft emergency.
Humans have creative problem-solving skills, the ability to adapt established procedures on the fly based on experience, though they might struggle to adapt quickly to something truly entirely without precedent.
And AI
Can be trained extensively in diverse simulations, sure, but it's known to be brittle with out-of-distribution data it hasn't encountered. And it lacks that human capacity for genuine intuition or common-sense reasoning needed for truly novel events.
Nuanced communication and negotiation, that seems like a clear human strength.
Currently, yes. We have the capacity for empathy. We can communicate clarity and reassurance under immense stress, understand subtext and implied meaning, negotiate complex situations. Human weaknesses here include potential for miscommunication due to workload, stress, language barriers.
And AI's role in communication.
Good at structured communication, tools like speech-to-text, potentially multilingual support, but fundamentally lacks true understanding of intent, emotion, or the subtle context that governs effective human communication in a crisis.
What about sustained vigilance and attention over long periods?
That's an area where AI appears to have a clear advantage in principle. Humans can focus intently, but we are susceptible to fatigue, vigilance decrement, distraction over prolonged periods, especially during monotonous tasks.
AI doesn't get tired.
Right. It can operate 24/7 without fatigue, providing consistent monitoring of all data streams. However, AI carries its own risks, like potentially missing subtle cues if not specifically trained to detect them, and the risk of silent failures, where it might stop functioning correctly without alerting the human operator.
High-volume data processing and analysis seems like an AI win.
Definitely an AI strength. Humans use pattern recognition based on experience, but our capacity is limited by cognitive load, and we are significantly slower than machines at processing vast streams of simultaneous data.
AI
Can instantly analyze massive data volumes from countless sources, identifying complex patterns and correlations human analysts would miss. But again, its insights are entirely dependent on the data's quality and completeness, garbage in, garbage out.
Speed of response. Who wins?
AI has theoretical advantages for certain tasks. Humans can respond rapidly in familiar emergencies, drawing on practice procedures, but we are limited by natural reaction time and cognitive processing speed.
AI can potentially react faster with pre-programmed or logic-based protocols in defined scenarios.
But it may hesitate, loop, or error with unfamiliar inputs, or when complex non-binary reasoning paths are required. It's not always faster if it doesn't understand.
Adherence to complex rules and procedures.
Generally a strength for AI. Humans understand the intent behind rules and can apply them flexibly, but are susceptible to error or deviation, particularly under pressure or fatigue.
AI consistently applies programmed rules perfectly.
But it is inflexible if the rules are incomplete, contradictory, or if the unique situation requires a deviation that isn't explicitly programmed. It lacks the human judgment to know when it's safer to break a rule.
Ethical judgment in a crisis. This seems like a major challenge for AI.
It is. Humans possess moral reasoning, empathy, the capacity to weigh conflicting values, though our decisions can be influenced by stress or emotion. AI can apply pre-programmed ethical frameworks or rule sets.
But it fundamentally lacks true moral agency or consciousness. It struggles immensely with complex trolley problems and that whole value alignment issue, whose ethics are we programming?
Detection of subtle cues or anomalies. This is an interesting one.
How so?
Humans use intuition, recognize subtle deviations from normal based on accumulated experience and context, but can overlook cues if fatigued or overloaded. AI can detect statistical anomalies or deviations from predicted norms.
But it may miss context-dependent cues, misinterpret non-standard but safe behavior, or fail to identify issues if they don't trigger its predefined anomaly detection parameters.
Finally, the management of human factors and others, like dealing with a pilot experiencing stress or panic.
Humans can offer reassurance, adapt communication style based on perceived emotional state, use experience to de-escalate situations.
AI currently has basically zero capability to directly manage human emotions, understand psychological states like pilot panic or stress, or adapt its interaction style in a way that is reassuring or calming.
Wow. This table, or this comparison, really vividly illustrates where the current strengths and weaknesses lie.
It makes it crystal clear that neither human nor AI alone currently possesses the full spectrum of capabilities needed for the increasingly complex future of ATC.
The unique blend of human judgment, adaptability, empathy,
Combined with AI speed, data processing, and tireless vigilance,
is why that human-AI hybrid approach is seen as so necessary and the most promising path forward.
Just popping in again to say, if you're enjoying this detailed breakdown, consider subscribing to Silent Mind Studio.
Yeah, and drop your thoughts or questions in the comments. We genuinely read them all, and it helps us figure out what you're curious about for future deep dives. It's always great to hear from you.
Okay, so Given those capabilities and those profound challenges we just discussed, what actually needs to be done? What needs to be put in place to lay the foundation for this AI integration? What are the essential prerequisites?
Right, the building blocks.
First and foremost is really forging AI proficiency within the system, and this relies heavily on advanced simulation capabilities.
Simulation is indispensable.
Absolutely. For training AI, especially for exposing it to the rare, chaotic, high-risk scenarios that simply don't happen frequently enough in live operations to provide sufficient training data.
But which are absolutely critical for safety. You have to train for the worst case.
Exactly. So these simulations can't just be basic models. They have to be incredibly robust and realistic.
They need to generate diverse, challenging scenarios,
Yeah.
potentially using real or custom-designed data.
Tailored for specific training objectives like testing conflict resolution algorithms or managing traffic in extremely high-density situations. A framework that uses real-world ADS-B data to simulate realistic pilot-controller interactions and potential AI responses is an example of the kind of sophisticated simulation needed.
And alongside simulation, you need the data itself. AI needs vast amounts of high-quality training data. We keep coming back to data.
It's fundamental. And this isn't just about volume. The data must be high quality, accurate, clean, uniform in format, diverse enough to cover all operational conditions.
And crucially, unbiased.
Yes. Getting that kind of comprehensive, high-quality data for training is a significant technical and logistical challenge, especially given the sensitivity and often proprietary nature of aviation data.
Which is why data management solutions, maybe on-premises cloud solutions or strict NDAs for data access, are often necessary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the risk here is the fundamental garbage in, catastrophe out principle.
If the AI's training data is flawed, contains biases, errors, incomplete representation of certain conditions, unrepresentative of rare events,
The AI could perform poorly or make unsafe decisions in the real world, which could have catastrophic consequences in ATC. This elevates data governance, quality assurance, and meticulous curation of training data sets to a paramount safety prerequisite.
you need data that covers the vast spectrum of both normal and abnormal scenarios, including those edge cases, for robust training.
And then there's the absolutely formidable hurdle of rigorous validation and verification, V&V, particularly for adaptive, non-deterministic AI.
This is critical for regulatory approval, right? Getting the sign-off.
It is. Traditional V&V methods, designed for deterministic software where outputs are predictable, simply aren't sufficient for AI, whose behavior isn't always fully predictable and can adapt over time.
Regulators are understandably cautious about certifying AI that learns or initiates maneuvers based on its own evolving logic.
So extensive, repeated, diverse testing across countless simulated and real-world scenarios is necessary. European research projects like CSAR's Trusty and Dialogue initiatives are actively exploring new methods for AI validation.
Focusing on things like ensuring transparency, explainability.
And rigorously testing human-AI interaction within simulated environments.
But even with incredibly advanced simulation, there's always going to be an inherent gap between simulation fidelity and the full, unpredictable complexity of the real world, right? Especially when it comes to true black swan events that nobody anticipated.
That's a crucial point. Over-reliance on simulation for validation could lead to a scenario where an AI performs perfectly in the controlled test environment, but fails unexpectedly in a live, unprecedented situation. A residual risk remains.
Which underscores the ongoing necessity for robust human oversight and the capability for human intervention.
In situations that go beyond the AI's validated operational domain, or when the AI exhibits unexpected behavior.
Okay, so beyond training the AI itself, the underlying infrastructure needs a major overhaul to support it. We talked about aging systems earlier.
Successfully integrating AI is inextricably linked to modernizing the fundamental digital backbone of air traffic management. As we discussed, many existing ATC systems globally are decades old.
Built on legacy technology that simply lacks the processing capacity, network connectivity, data architecture required for modern AI systems that demand real-time access to vast, diverse data streams.
Major initiatives like NextGen and CSAR are explicitly focused on upgrading this backbone.
And SWIM, that system-wide information management system, seems like a key component enabling this.
It's absolutely central. SWIM is designed to facilitate seamless, secure data sharing among all ATM stakeholders, controllers, pilots, airlines, airports, weather providers, creating the rich, interconnected data environment that AI needs to performance analysis and generate insights.
Modernization plans involve replacing outdated voice communication infrastructure with fiber optic satellite systems.
In upgrading or replacing older radar technology with more modern surveillance systems.
And a robust data architecture underneath it all is essential, especially for AI systems like generative AI that need to handle diverse data types and modalities and be aware of potential biases.
Yes. The challenge here is complicated by deeply embedded legacy systems, often built on ancient programming languages like COBOL running on mainframes.
Wow, COBOL still.
Which are notoriously difficult and expensive to modernize or integrate with cutting-edge AI. While AI tools can potentially assist in areas like documenting or refactoring old code, the task is substantial.
Examples like Mosaic ATM's ARAT tool needing to integrate with existing FAA systems using real-time data illustrate the need for new AI-powered tools to work within and leverage existing infrastructure, however old.
Right. And Eurocontrol is also evolving its Prism data warehouse into a cloud-based data hub specifically designed with an AI platform layer.
But integrating new, modern AI systems into a global ATC environment that is fundamentally a patchwork of legacy systems from different eras, different vendors, different national standards. That sounds like an incredibly complex interoperability maze.
It absolutely is, and it's often an underestimated barrier. It's not just about ensuring data formats are compatible. It's about reconciling differing operational philosophies and protocols that are deeply embedded in older systems.
Even before widespread AI, issues like varying aircraft equipage levels among users hindered the full benefits of initiatives like NextGen.
Exactly. A significant hurdle is ensuring new AI systems can communicate, collaborate, and operate reliably and safely within this diverse, frequently outdated global ecosystem. This requires substantial international investment and standardization efforts, developing common interfaces, and carefully managed migration strategies.
And underpinning all of this is the need for comprehensive data governance. You can't just throw data at the AI.
Data governance cannot be an afterthought. It is a critical enabler for trustworthy AI. Without a well-organized data infrastructure and strong governance, covering data quality, bias mitigation, security, privacy, data sovereignty regulations, AI risks being fed substandard or compromised data.
Leading to flawed analyses, bias recommendations, potentially untrustworthy or unsafe performance in a system where reliability is paramount.
Plus, privacy concerns and regulatory compliance regarding diverse data sources add complexity. A proactive, robust data strategy covering the entire data lifecycle must either precede or evolve in lockstep with AI deployment to ensure the integrity and reliability of the information AI relies on.
Okay, this leads us to the envisioned future operational model, that human-AI partnership, the HAH paradigm. What does that collaborative model actually look like in practice?
Well, the prevailing consensus across the sources is that the future of ATC involves sophisticated human-AI hybrid systems. The AI will primarily function to assist and augment human capabilities.
Automating routine tasks, processing vast data, providing advanced decision support.
Exactly. But human controllers will retain ultimate control and responsibility, especially for critical judgments and navigating unforeseen or highly complex situations.
So the goal, at least in the near to medium term, is definitely augmentation, not wholesale replacement of the human controller.
Precisely. Regulatory roadmaps, like ESA's AI roadmap, outline progressive levels of autonomy, starting with AI simply providing assistance, moving to cognitive support, then collaboration, potentially advanced automation, but often with a clear path for human override.
The human-AI hybrid, HAH paradigm, particularly emphasized in CSAR research,
envisions a synergistic blending of human strengths, judgment, intuition, adaptability, ethical reasoning with AI-powered computation, speed, pattern recognition, tireless vigilance.
And effective HAH characteristics identified include dynamic role adaptation between human and AI, mutual trust built on transparency,
And a clear, shared focus on safety above all else.
and human factors research is indispensable for designing these hybrid systems effectively.
Absolutely crucial. For designing intuitive human-machine interfaces, ensuring AI tools present information effectively without overwhelming the controller, helping manage workload appropriately.
AI can also facilitate improved communication and shared situational awareness, right? Not just between controllers and AI.
But also among controllers, pilots, and potentially emergency responders by providing everyone with a common AI-analyzed operational picture.
But just having static levels of oversight where the human is always in charge might not be sufficient for the dynamic nature of ATC operations, could it?
That's a very interesting point raised in some material. Effective teaming might actually require dynamic oversight,
Dynamic oversight.
where the level of human intervention and the degree of AI autonomy shifts fluidly based on the real-time complexity of the situation, the AI's own confidence in its assessment, or even the human controller's assessed workload or fatigue level.
Designing AI systems with a degree of self-awareness about their own limitations, the ability to recognize when they are in an uncertain or out-of-distribution scenario, and explicitly signal the need for human intervention that sounds like a significant technical and human factors challenge.
It is. And human operators need to be trained not just to supervise, but to manage these dynamic shifts in control and responsibility effectively.
This shift to a supervisory role also raises a well-known concern from automation research: the risk of human skill atrophy.
Yes, the out-of-the-loop performance problem. If AI handles most of the routine, hands-on control tasks, there's a real concern that human controllers, acting primarily in a supervisory capacity, might not get enough practice in core manual control skills.
Which becomes critically problematic if the AI system fails, encounters a scenario it can't handle, or needs to be overridden.
And the human suddenly needs to rapidly and effectively take over highly complex tasks they haven't performed hands-on regularly.
So future training programs must somehow balance teaching controllers how to supervise and interact with AI effectively and ensure they maintain rigorous proficiency in those fundamental manual control skills. It's a dual challenge.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Advanced simulators, ideally AI enhance themselves to create challenging and realistic failure or anomaly scenarios, will be crucial for maintaining controller proficiency in managing unexpected events and executing emergency takeover procedures.
And finally, to make any of this AI integration work globally and safely, we need robust international regulatory frameworks, clear certification protocols, and uniform operational standards. It can't be a free-for-all.
No way. AI and ATC, by its very nature, necessitates global governance. This means developing common international regulatory frameworks addressing liability, ethics, uniform operational standards for AI-run systems that operate across borders.
Leading aviation authorities like the FAA and EASA are already developing AI roadmaps and specific guidelines for AI system certification.
And ICA plays a vital role here in fostering international collaboration, influencing global approaches, and working towards harmonization.
But certifying non-deterministic adaptive AI sounds particularly challenging given that its behavior can change over time. How do you certify something that learns?
It is, significantly. The core concerns are predictability, reliability, and the ability to perform exhaustive verification and validation for systems whose behavior isn't fixed. Deterministic AI, with predictable rule-based outputs, is generally seen as more straightforward to certify within existing frameworks.
New standards specific to AI, like ISO IEC 42001 for AI management systems and TEAN 3894 for AI risk management, are emerging.
Yes, but global harmonization is critical for interoperability and preventing conflicting national regulations that could fragment the global ATM system. IETO's roadmap emphasizes cross-domain rulemaking and integrating AI into existing certification processes while focusing on proving trustworthiness.
But there's often a pacing problem with regulation, isn't there? Technology moves incredibly fast, and regulatory frameworks typically evolve much, much slower.
This is a significant challenge. Regulatory frameworks and certification processes inherently evolve slower than the rapid advancement of AI capabilities. AI development cycles are accelerating.
And this lag creates uncertainty for technology developers and innovators. They might not know what standards they need to meet to get certified.
Potentially stifling beneficial advancements. Or, conversely, competitive pressure could lead to premature deployment of systems without adequate regulatory scrutiny, potentially posing safety risks.
A key challenge for regulators globally is striking the right balance between fostering innovation and ensuring rigorous, proactive safety oversight.
Absolutely. And for an inherently global system like aviation, that regulatory lag or divergence could create significant fragmentation risk.
Aviation relies on seamless operations across borders.
So divergent national or regional AI regulations, certification requirements, or differing approaches to AI ethics could lead to a fragmented global ATM system. This hinders interoperability, creates complex compliance burdens for airlines and tech providers operating internationally.
And could even create regulatory AI havens with potentially lower safety or ethical standards.
Yeah. Robust international collaboration and a concerted effort towards harmonizing essential principles and standards are absolutely essential to ensure AI integration enhances rather than complicates global safety and efficiency.
Our sources provide a potential roadmap for AI integration in ATC, often broken down into phases. It seems helpful to think about it that way. Let's walk through what those might look like.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful to view this as an evolving incremental process rather than a single switchover event. Phase 1, which we are already seeing aspects of, is really AI as decision support and augmentation.
Okay, what capabilities are deployed there?
Things like predictive analytics for traffic flow, AI-powered speech-to-text transcription, enhanced surveillance processing, and AI-assisted flight data monitoring.
Challenges.
Data quality is a big one. The initial development and validation of explainable AI, XAI, building controller trust, and fundamental cybersecurity.
Prerequisites.
Having modernized data infrastructure like SWIM, establishing initial regulatory guidance and standards, plus beginning to build AI literacy among ATCs.
Okay, phase 2 is envisioned as human-AI collaborative control. What does that involve?
This introduces more sophisticated capabilities, like AI-recommended conflict resolution strategies presented to the controller for approval, and potentially dynamic sectorization recommendations based on real-time traffic load.
The challenges become more complex here, I imagine.
Definitely. Accurately calibrating trust between human and AI, dynamically allocating tasks between them effectively, designing effective human-machine interfaces, HMI, for seamless teamwork, and rigorously validating the safety of collaborative decision-making processes.
And the prerequisites for this phase?
More advanced simulation and V&V techniques, specifically for human-AI teams, robust human factors research on effective teaming models, and updated ATC training programs focusing specifically on collaboration.
Then phase 3 moves towards AI as a primary controller, but with human supervision.
Right. Here, AI might drive tactical control in well-defined, perhaps less complex scenarios. Performing automated conflict resolution, but with a human controller actively supervising and retaining the ability to veto or take over immediately.
This phase could also see AI beginning to manage initial urban air mobility, UAM, or drone operations in designated areas.
Potentially, yes. Challenges intensify again, ensuring robust AI decision-making, even in more complex or novel scenarios within its defined operational domain.
Managing the risk of human skill atrophy as AI handles more routine tasks.
And clearly defining liability frameworks for supervised autonomy. Who is responsible if the supervised AI makes an error?
Prerequisites for this stage.
Mature XAI capabilities for critical decisions, so humans understand why the AI is doing what it's doing, even more rigorous AI certification processes, and clear legal and ethical frameworks specifically for scenarios involving supervised autonomy and potential AI errors.
And phase 4 is the furthest out, representing potential highly autonomous operations.
This could involve fully autonomous airspace management in specific areas or for certain types of operations, perhaps initially in less complex or dedicated airspace corridors.
The challenges here sound immense.
They are. Guaranteeing safety with absolute certainty in completely unforeseen or novel situations, programming AI to handle complex ethical decisions autonomously, ensuring the robust cybersecurity of highly autonomous interconnected systems against sophisticated threats.
Prerequisites would likely require major breakthroughs, wouldn't they?
Yeah, breakthroughs in AI generalization and techniques for provably safe AI, broad public and regulatory acceptance, which is currently quite low for full autonomy, and fully harmonized global interoperability standards for autonomous systems.
This roadmap clearly shows that AI integration is expected to be a gradual, safety-first process, starting with tools that augment human capabilities.
And only progressively moving towards higher levels of automation as trust, technology, and regulation mature together.
And this evolution isn't happening in a vacuum, is it? It ties directly into the changing nature of the skies themselves with the proliferation of new airspace users.
Drones, UAM.
And fundamentally reshapes the role and required skill sets of the human ATC workforce.
Absolutely. The proliferation of unmanned aircraft systems, UAS, drones, and the development of urban air mobility, UAM vehicles for passenger transport, present significant new challenges for airspace management.
Operating at low altitudes, often in complex urban environments, and potentially very high density.
AI is recognized as a critical enabler for managing this, forming the foundation of unmanned traffic management, UTM systems.
Right.
AI-powered UTM capabilities are needed for real-time, automated conflict detection and resolution, dynamic route planning, managing flight authorizations for potentially millions of drone flights.
And AI algorithms are crucial for the detect and avoid DAA capabilities required for drones to operate safely, right? Processing sensor data in real time to avoid collisions.
Yes, and optimizing flight paths and schedules for these new vehicles in congested lower airspace. Companies are already leveraging AI in their UTM platforms, The long-term vision for automated or highly AI-augmented towers often includes seamlessly integrating full UTM capabilities.
Suggesting a convergence where drone management eventually integrates with or significantly informs traditional ATC.
So, in a way, the need to manage the complexity of drones and UAM is acting as both a driver for and a proving ground for advanced ATC AI. Perhaps pioneering techniques that are then adapted for traditional air traffic.
Yeah, the innovative solutions developed for the complexity of the lower skies may well inform and accelerate AI evolution in the upper skies.
This also raises a fundamental strategic question. Do we manage UAM drones in dedicated, segregated UTM airspace with its own AI systems?
Or do we fully integrate them into the existing ATC system using a common AI platform?
AI is indispensable for either approach, but the sophistication, interoperability requirements, and regulatory path differ significantly depending on which path is chosen.
And that strategic decision about segregation versus integration has really long-term consequences for airspace capacity, safety, and the trajectory of AI development for aviation.
Absolutely. And this evolving airspace, coupled with AI integration, fundamentally changes the role of the human controller, as we touched on earlier.
The consensus across sources points to a significant shift from direct manual control, where the controller is constantly issuing explicit instructions,
To a more supervisory role.
Yeah.
In this future model, the human controller oversees AI systems, manages exceptions when AI encounters issues, and focuses on strategic flow management and high-level decisions.
but retaining the human expertise, judgment, and adaptability for those truly unexpected, complex situations remains absolutely central to maintaining safety and resilience in the system.
It's a paradigm of human-AI teaming and collaboration, where the human remains the ultimate authority.
But this transition isn't without its human factors risks, is it? As AI handles more routine tasks.
There's a concern about vigilance decrement. Humans become less attentive when supervising automated systems over long periods. And as we discussed, the out-of-the-loop performance problem is a significant worry.
If AI handles routine tasks, controllers might have less practice with manual control skills, impairing their ability to rapidly and effectively take over if the AI fails or faces an unprecedented situation.
So designing the human role in these future systems must prioritize maintaining meaningful human engagement to mitigate these risks.
Furthermore, this redefines what expertise means for an air traffic controller, doesn't it?
It might be less about rapid tactical execution of maneuvers and more about strategic oversight, understanding the capabilities and, crucially, the limitations of the AI, and being highly skilled at managing system failures or anomalies.
It also further complicates accountability. Where does responsibility lie if an AI-recommended strategy overseen by a human controller leads to an adverse outcome?
New frameworks for evaluating performance and certifying controller competence in these AI-augmented environments will be absolutely needed.
Which clearly requires adapting training programs significantly. Future controllers need a fundamentally different or at least augmented set of skills.
They absolutely do. Future controllers need to deeply understand the capabilities, limitations, and potential failure modes of the AI systems they supervise. Proficiency in interpreting AI-generated data and recommendations.
Understanding its reasoning, if XAI is available.
And expertly managing the interaction and collaboration within a human AI team is vital. And as we emphasized, maintaining robust manual control skills for emergencies and situations where AI is unavailable or inappropriate remains absolutely essential.
Institutions like Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University are already incorporating advanced ATC technology, including AI-assisted voice recognition for pseudo-pilots and simulations and high-fidelity visualizations into their training programs. So it's starting.
It is. And military research is also exploring the use of AI to assist in curriculum development for controllers, though consistently emphasizing the necessity of retaining ultimate human oversight. Future training paradigms need to blend traditional technical proficiency with AI tools with core human-centric skills, superior communication, critical thinking, adaptability, and a commitment to continuous learning about evolving technology.
AI itself can enhance simulation environments too, right? Using AI-driven speech recognition for realistic pseudo-pilot interactions.
There are intelligent scenario generation and performance analytics for training supervisors.
This concept of AI literacy for controllers seems key. They don't need to be AI programmers,
No.
but they need a solid conceptual understanding of how AI works, its potential biases, common failure modes, and how to interpret its confidence levels or uncertainty.
That foundational knowledge is absolutely essential for effective supervision, calibrated trust, knowing when and when not to trust the AI, and making informed decisions when the AI provides a recommendation. Training must go beyond procedural steps for interacting with AI to instilling a deeper conceptual understanding of the AI principles at play.
And as live operational manual practice potentially decreases.
High-fidelity simulations significantly enhanced by AI to replicate complex and emergency scenarios becomes even more critical for developing and maintaining both supervisory skills and manual intervention proficiency, directly mitigating that skill atrophy concern.
Looking at a breakdown of evolving roles and skill requirements like the comparison table from the sources, it vividly illustrates this transition. Traditional manual tasks shift dramatically.
Yeah, for example, the traditional skill of manual separation assurance and tactical conflict resolution. That shifts towards the future role of AI system supervisor and exception handler.
Demanding new skills like AI system monitoring, understanding AI limitations and failure modes, developing effective intervention strategies, performing rapid anomaly assessment. Skills quite different from solely manipulating radar inputs.
Implications for training include new curriculum specifically on AI operation and supervision, advanced simulation focused on supervisory tasks and emergency takeover, and training on ethical frameworks related to AI decisions.
Traditional voice communications with pilots shifts towards being a human-AI team collaborator.
Requires managing AI-assisted communication tools, ensuring clear, unambiguous communication within a complex human-AI loop. This means training on new protocols for interacting with AI systems and human factors, training focused on human-AI communication clarity.
Routine flight plan processing and data entry evolves into a role more like a strategic flow manager.
Requires understanding and leveraging data analytics, interpreting AI-driven predictive models for traffic flow, making strategic decisions based on AI insights. The implication for training is a shift towards analytical skills, understanding model outputs, and training in strategic decision-making tools.
Reliance on memory and procedural recall shifts to being an AI system user and verifier.
Requires understanding how the AI applies rules, the ability to query the AI's rationale using XAI tools, the critical task of verifying that AI behavior complies with regulations, which might be dynamically changing.
Meaning training on using AI interfaces and XAI tools effectively, and emphasizing continuous learning about evolving AI capabilities and regulations.
And individual task execution transforms into being a collaborative problem solver within a complex system. Demands effective teamwork with both AI and human colleagues, maintaining shared situational awareness across all system components, human and AI, developing cybersecurity awareness related to the AI systems being used.
So training needs to include extensive exercises in human-AI teaming dynamics, collaborative problem-solving exercises, and education on identifying and responding to cybersecurity threats related to AI components.
It's clear this isn't just a small adjustment to the job. It's a fundamental reshaping of the controller's role and the skills they will need to master to ensure safety in an AI-augmented future.
Which brings us to the strategic path forward advocated by experts and organizations involved in this transition. Given the complexities, uncertainties, significant risks, a carefully considered phased approach to AI integration is widely advocated as the most prudent path.
It makes sense, incrementally introducing AI capabilities into the system over time.
Beginning with assistive and augmentive roles, where AI provides tools and recommendations, but the human controller maintains full control and responsibility for critical decisions.
And the progression to higher levels of automation should only happen gradually. As technology matures, trust is built, and regulatory frameworks catch up. Safety must remain the absolute paramount priority throughout this entire process. says AI Roadmap, for instance, explicitly lays out such a phased methodology.
And focusing initially on AI applications that are seen as less safety critical or more easily verifiable seems like a smart starting point, targeting the low-hanging fruit.
Absolutely. Areas where AI can provide immediate benefits with lower risk. This could include AI for predictive maintenance of ATC equipment, optimizing ground operations logistics at airports.
Or implementing AI-powered speech-to-text transcription for communications logging.
Exactly, and these initial integrations provide benefits while also serving a crucial purpose beyond their direct function.
They provide immediate operational improvement.
But just as importantly, they provide valuable real-world experience with deploying, managing, maintaining AI systems in an operational environment. This experience is invaluable for understanding practical challenges and informs future, more complex integrations.
It also helps build trust and acceptance among the most important stakeholders, the human ATCs who will use these systems, the regulators who must certify them, and the public. Creates a positive feedback loop.
And this phased strategy also allows regulatory frameworks and certification processes to evolve alongside the technology, helping to mitigate that pacing problem we discussed. Gaining operational experience with simpler AI applications informs the development of more sophisticated standards, methodologies, and regulatory approaches needed for certifying complex adaptive systems.
This iterative approach is essential for building a robust safety framework for AI in aviation.
Okay, so beyond the technical and operational challenges, there's the significant non-technical hurdle of cultivating societal acceptance and public trust in AI operating in these safety-critical, licensed professional roles like air traffic control.
Public trust is absolutely crucial for widespread adoption. Surveys often indicate a degree of public apprehension or discomfort regarding fully autonomous aviation systems.
Broader societal concerns about job displacement due to automation, questions about AI reliability compared to human performance, a fundamental unease about AI lacking human intuition or nuance. They all play a role.
So building that trust isn't just about proving technical safety. It requires proactively addressing those ethical dilemmas we discussed.
And establishing clear, unambiguous accountability mechanisms so the public knows who is responsible if something goes wrong with an AI system.
And open, transparent communication with the public about what AI can and cannot do, its capabilities and its limitations, is essential.
Demonstrating an unwavering commitment to safety through rigorous, transparent testing and validation is fundamental to earning that trust. It's also important to recognize that public perception will be shaped by AI failures in other domains, not just aviation.
Right. Aviation can't build this trust in isolation.
It must actively engage with wider societal anxieties about AI and articulate the unique safety protocols, layers of human oversight, and rigorous safeguards that are being put in place for AI in this high-consequence field.
And this is another area where explainable AI becomes crucial, isn't it? Not just for the controllers operating the systems, but for public and professional acceptance.
Exactly. Decision-making in safety-critical situations or during post-incident analysis cannot be relegated to opaque black boxes. The ability to understand why an AI system made a particular decision or recommendation is vital for building confidence.
Sustained investment in XAI research and actively integrating explainability features into deployable AI systems are fundamental prerequisites for building the necessary public and professional confidence for responsible AI deployment in ATC.
And finally, making continued safe and effective AI integration a reality hinges on prioritizing future research and fostering robust global collaboration.
Yes, a sustained, well-funded research agenda is essential. Key areas of focus must include improving AI robustness and predictability in unpredictable or novel scenarios,
Developing practical ethical frameworks for AI decision-making in crises, advancing XAI techniques, researching effective human-AI teaming models,
developing new methods for safety assurance and verification for adaptive systems, and enhancing cybersecurity specifically against AI-centric threats.
and global collaboration among regulatory bodies, research institutions, industry partners, international organizations like ICAO.
Yeah.
It's non-negotiable.
It's absolutely essential for harmonizing standards and regulations, sharing best practices and lessons learned from early deployments, coordinating research efforts to avoid duplication and accelerate progress.
And ensuring global safety and interoperability of future AI-enhanced ATM systems. Initiatives like the FAA's stated plans for collaboration and ICAO strategy actively promote this necessary international effort.
And proactive risk mitigation, like adversarial research or red teaming, seems crucial here too.
Precisely. This involves independent teams actively trying to break or fool AI systems in realistic simulations to uncover hidden vulnerabilities, biases, unsafe emergent behaviors, or cyber susceptibility before they are deployed live. This kind of rigorous adversarial testing is crucial for building truly resilient and trustworthy AI systems for safety-critical applications.
The strategic use of open data and potentially open source AI models could also accelerate innovation, couldn't it? By lowering barriers.
It could certainly foster innovation, yeah? Sharing anonymized operational data like flight data or simulation outputs and open sourcing tools or models could accelerate progress globally.
However,
this needs careful balancing against the significant security risks of malicious actors potentially exploiting those resources. A nuanced approach is required, with robust security protocols, strict data anonymization and sharing guidelines, and careful consideration of which components can be open source without compromising safety or security.
Yeah.
Perhaps focusing on pre-competitive areas or providing controlled access environments.
Okay, one last reminder for everyone tuning in. If this deep dive resonated with you, please subscribe to Silent Mike Studio and follow us.
And definitely share your thoughts or questions in the comments below. We really value that interaction, and it helps us focus on what you find most interesting.
So to bring this all together then, AI in air traffic control represents a potential paradigm shift, offering enormous potential benefits for enhancing safety, improving efficiency, increasing airspace capacity.
Leveraging a range of powerful AI technologies and ongoing global modernization initiatives.
But this potential is matched by a host of profound and complex challenges.
The AI cognition gap and brittleness, ethical quandaries around moral judgment and value alignment, the difficulty of building trust and ensuring accountability, that black box problem, regulatory lag, liability.
Significant cybersecurity risks, including novel AI-specific threats and amplified systemic vulnerability.
And the potential for unforeseen risks like rogue AIs or the complexity ratchet effect.
The path forward advocated by experts and evidenced in policy documents is one of prudence, iteration, and prioritizing safety above all else.
It involves phased integration, starting with assistive and augmentative roles where humans remain firmly in control, iterative learning from deployments, building trust gradually among all stakeholders.
And the careful coevolution of technology, operational procedures, and regulatory frameworks.
And the role of the human ATC is evolving significantly from direct operator to supervisor and manager of complex AI systems, requiring not just new skills in AI literacy, but also the crucial maintenance of fundamental manual control proficiency for when automation isn't sufficient or fails.
Ultimately, the core question isn't simply if AI can manage the skies in some theoretical sense,
but how responsibly we, as a global aviation community, can harness its immense power while mitigating its risks and ensuring unwavering safety.
And this will require sustained investment not just in AI development, but crucially in AI safety, ethics, human-AI interaction research.
Robust global standards and certification processes, continued infrastructure modernization, and dedicated efforts to cultivate public and professional trust through transparency and proven reliability.
And the human anchor, with its unique, currently irreplaceable capacities for judgment, adaptability in the face of true novelty, and ethical reasoning,
will remain an indispensable and central component of the future of air traffic management for the foreseeable future.
This deep dive was designed specifically for you, pulling together the most important information, key insights, and major considerations from the sources provided on this fascinating, critical, and rapidly evolving topic.
It really makes you pause and think about the future of human-machine collaboration in the most critical of environments.
Could the biggest challenge ultimately be not whether AI can handle the sheer complexity and data of the skies, but whether we as humans, with our own biases, trust issues, and need for understanding, can truly learn to effectively collaborate with, train, and coexist safely alongside a machine that fundamentally perceives and processes the world differently than we do, especially in those moments of crisis where everything is on the line.